For me, this was an incredible game of football for a number of reasons. The fallout from it, the fact the referee dominated the storyline there, given Anthony Taylor let it go. Your initial thoughts firstly, I guess, before we get into nuts and bolts on it, of how big a win was that for Liverpool? Because I touched on this talking on another podcast that if Liverpool had lost, they'd be 16 points behind. That's the narrative, obviously. But the fact they win their game in hand, it's now 7 points. And I know it's only a 6-pointer, but really it felt like a 9-pointer.
No, those games are always, look, football's increasingly gone like that. If you're a top side or you're a side around the bottom, it's beat the teams in and around you. That's the key. That's going to define titles. And you say 9 points. It's more kind of 7 points in that sense. It's that extra kind of, it's just a huge amount of stopping City in their tracks as well. And obviously it's a disappointing week for City, drawing Copenhagen, getting a man sent off. And to be honest, they're pretty poor, and Copenhagen really would feel like that's a missed opportunity. And then going to Anfield, and as we've seen in the past, it's their hardest place to go, and it's a huge psychological effect now for Guardiola, how he bounces back his team. It's probably a good thing for Arsenal and for Man City that they're not playing Thursday. Obviously, Arsenal have to play PSV in a game that got rearranged post the Queen's death, and for City, it's probably something where they can, take a couple of days off and go back into it, and for a busy period now, right up until that World Cup. But it was a funny game because obviously being an Arsenal fan, the Arsenal game got delayed, so I didn't have too much excitement for the Liverpool City game, and I turned it on, and to be honest, I was really disappointed with the first 25-30 minutes. I thought it was a pretty cagey game. Obviously, City were a little bit cagey because they were expecting the usual Anfield effect, the press and winning the ball high up the pitch, and Liverpool were really compact. They were really intense in their defending, which is something they've lacked recently, and it just shows you that a bit of intensity in your defending in this day and age, when you don't see an awful lot of it, goes an awful long way, because the fact that James Milner at 36 years of age or so was able to put in a performance like that was just all because he was so intense and disciplined in his tackling, in his positioning, and as a result, Liverpool weren't their free-flowing best that we've seen at Anfield for the last 4 or 5 years under Jurgen Klopp, but they're a lot more rigid, they're a lot more hard to beat, and it was their best way of getting a result, considering where they are at the moment and some of the injuries they do have. On Man City, Pep Guardiola is a genius, and whenever you talk about him, you have to really choose your words, because he can make you look like a fool, but he does have this tendency to at times just tinker and change things slightly. And I know we've seen Ake in left back before, and he's done well there, and obviously Cancelo can play high up the pitch. It just did feel a little bit strange that. And it was quite an interesting point that I think Gary Neville was trying to make on after the game, that it was almost De Bruyne couldn't operate in his usual pockets. He was kind of playing in off the wing, and City just didn't have that balance. And you look at Arsenal, and maybe Arsenal are obviously they are a couple of years behind Man City in their progression, but Arsenal play almost a similar way to Man City in that it all revolves around their wide players and their connecting players beside it. So if you look at Arsenal's right-hand side, Martin Odegaard never operates off the left. He's always off the right in a sort of a link with Saka. And similar now, Xhaka's doing that link with Martinelli. And City have been so dominant for an awful long time with Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden on that left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side with a De Bruyne, or, you can play Foden on that side. But there's always the wide player and the midfield kind of link. Because the midfield link then operates in that kind of channel in those areas where they can play forward passes into the box, they can drag defenders to them and open up space for the wingers. So it did feel like City had gone away from that. And it also felt like between Rodri, Gundogan, Silva and De Bruyne, it did feel like to me, it was like Pep didn't want to leave one of them out. And obviously he had that decision made from in the Manchester derby when they had no Rodri. So it did feel like to me when I saw the team, it was like, he doesn't fully trust Grealish, and Mahrez isn't high on favour at the moment. And it also felt like he didn't want to drop one of them that kind of box in the midfield. So as a result, City weren't as effective. And I know they had chances, but considering where Liverpool are and I suppose the freedom Liverpool gave City. And like that first 45 is as easy a 45 minutes that a Man City team is going to have at Anfield. Liverpool were almost setting themselves up for the second half, and they came firing out of the blocks, and they made it. Salah got more into the game. Ederson produced a brilliant save, and Harvey Elliott had chances, and Liverpool still had chances in the first half, but in the second half they were getting a much better chance because City felt like they had to push on and try and stamp their authority on the match. So in the end, the game kind of fell into place for Liverpool. I think Jurgen Klopp would have been thinking that's how it would have played out, to his credit. But City will, and Pep Guardiola, when he looks back at that, will be really frustrated because you're not going to get an easier game at Anfield in that first 45. Yeah. They weren't able to capitalise.
You could see the frustration in the goal in that moment and him falling to his knees. But look, I fully agree with you on Pep Roulette. And I think the term Pep Roulette always, almost sort of does Pep a favor there. It's like, oh, you know what Pep's like in big games. He tinkers around with the team when it's just fundamentally bad decisions constantly are costing Manchester City. And I heard a few people make this point, and it's fair enough. Like I think, and I agree with it. I think City would always. They've gone on to the new level from Pep Guardiola. There's no way another manager, maybe outside the top one or two, a Jurgen Klopp perhaps, a Thomas Tuchel perhaps, that could get these incredible points tally with this Manchester City team. But I definitely think another manager might have got Manchester City a Champions League just based on big games, picking the right team in big games. Chelsea in the Champions League final is one example. And let's go right to the Sunday, and it's another example. And even the way Jamie pointed out how high up the pitch Cancelo was, just doing stuff that they're not doing week in, week out. You touched on Jack Grealish. He's actually been playing for the last couple of games coming into it. It would have been a perfect opportunity to operate him on the left wing. I know what he was trying to do with Phil Foden potentially up against James Milner as opposed to Phil Foden off the right. So, and then look, they couldn't really get Haaland into the game. In fact, particularly first half, I thought Haaland came deep a lot to link the play, which I haven't really seen that much, given like there's certain stats that there's 8 touches a half from Haaland at times. So yeah, I think people are ultimately a little bit too kind to Pep Guardiola. You can be in awe of his incredible coaching, his credible management skill, the way he gets these outrageous league points totals in Germany, Spain, and England. But you can also say big games and big moments, Pep Guardiola doesn't do it. And again, on another show, I was chatting to someone and they were saying, like, you wouldn't rule out in a big Champions League semi-final, second leg, away to Bayern or at home to Bayern, that Pep wants to go with an extra midfielder and says, we'll bring Haaland off the bench because he was playing Sunday. Like, that's ludicrous, but it's not 100-1 shot, And I think people are entitled to have that criticism of Pep Guardiola in big games, but you can also be in awe of his incredible coaching philosophy. But he needs a stronger assistant manager. Maybe he needs a Mikel Arteta in there as opposed to what he currently has. I don't know, but it's definitely an interesting point for sure.
Yeah. Look, when you think of Guardiola and the big omission is his record in the Champions League, and it's the ultimate knockout competition in club football. It is that you don't want to say form goes out the window, but you've seen it in the past where Chelsea have struggled in the league and won a Champions League, and there's other examples of that. And again, it's other examples of a team like an Inter Milan that just everything comes together in that one season, and they have a brilliant year, and under a brilliant manager win the Champions League. So the way City are going to win the Champions League is they're going to be the best team in England and ultimately then be the best team in Europe. Yeah, and all bar Guardiola's first year, had they not been the best team in England, and by the year Liverpool won the league. So it's to win the league and then win the Champions League and have that relentlessness is always, it's so hard to do. Very few teams have done it. You obviously look at the great United team in the 1999, and it is so hard to do. But for this City team, it does feel like the next step. But you're right. Look, the Champions League final where he played the no defensive midfielder, having not played one all year, and just small little things, and he's the game so well, who understands the game so much. I don't think it's, people maybe say he's trying to flex his muscles, but like, this guy's a genius. We've not really seen the likes of him before. So if he sees something in his head, I'm sure he sees it, A, for a valid good reason, and B, because he thinks it'll help him. that Amazon documentary, look, what is it now, 4 years ago, I think 3 years ago, and that it came out, shed an awful lot of light. I saw the detail that they could win. I remember there was an afternoon where Guardiola and his coaching staff are having a dinner and they're watching Arsenal against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup semi-final a few years ago when it was Arsene Wenger's Arsenal, and he says, look, Arteta, you're going to be studying Arsenal. This is you for 2 weeks. I want blah blah blah, this and this and this. So, if you're studying against the Liverpool, and there is certain teams that Pep Guardiola feels like he has to do something different. Always felt like that. It's felt like that against Klopp. That Chelsea game, he obviously felt like he had to do something because Chelsea were playing 3-5-2. So it's hard to know with Guardiola. I think if we'll know his ultimate legacy at the end of the season, because I think many people will feel that if he doesn't win the Champions League or even get to a Champions League final this year, then questions will be asked. But then again, you look at Bayern Munich. I saw them, I know that they haven't been playing much in the Champions League group, but you look at some of the goals they scored the last week. Mane seems to be finding a bit of form after a little bit of a slow start. They've got Sané, Gnabry, Kingsley Coman, Jamal Musiala looks like one of the best young talents in not just German football but European football. So there is and Liverpool obviously that are going to be kind of a wounded tiger. So there is, it's not going to be easy for Man City, and the competition maybe is getting harder. There's no two dominant sides like we've seen in the Barcelona era and then the Real Madrid era of the Sergio Ramos, Gareth Bale, Benzema, Ronaldo. So it's an interesting time. But look, it's this year is going to be the ultimate year to cast judgment on Guardiola.
Well, and just an interesting one, you look at the odds, they are more unlikely than likely to win the Champions League given the competition. You touched on Bayern, that you're kind of stealing my thunder there. I've been looking at them last few weeks. I think they're my pick. I was going to say dark horse, they're third favourites, but they'd be my pick at the moment, given how they've kind of got themselves together. One final thing you touched on there, I'm just smiling that, I guess, if you're a Mikel Arteta or a City assistant manager now and Pep says 2 weeks study Liverpool, like you touched on, you can't come back with saying, oh, we got to play the same team. You know what I mean? So there's that sort of, you spend 2 weeks and what we play our normal, whatever, 4-3-3. So look, it'll be fascinating how City tack these big games going forward.
I definitely think Haaland is changing a lot of Man City as well, and they're slowly maybe going to start getting used to him. You got to remember, like, Man City played the whole of last year without a centre forward. They pretty much played most of the year before that. Aguero's had these injuries issues prior to his exit at Man City. So they are, not that you feel sorry for them, but you have to cut them maybe a little bit of slack in terms of they aren't used to playing with that big focal point. And as I said, look, last year, if Man City went into that game against Liverpool without and Guardiola wanted to play all of Silva, Rodri, Gundogan, and De Bruyne, it would have been no issue. They would have had an extra wide man. They would have probably played De Bruyne or Bernardo Silva as the false number 9. Now they can't really do that. We saw on Sunday what happens. Cancelo gets caught high up the pitch. De Bruyne isn't as far forward as he normally is because Man City won't pin teams back as easily as they do when they play with a front three. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. City will still win the league. I think will still win it pretty easy. I do like the look of Potter's Chelsea. Maybe you might see them compete in a cup, and Liverpool as well. So there's nothing to say Guardiola won't win a quadruple or a treble this year, but there is a few chinks in their armor recently that maybe they aren't they aren't invincible, but maybe they aren't that that they aren't that tough to play against anymore, which is a crazy thing to say with Haaland, but it does feel like there is ways around Man City. Then maybe they don't play as total football as they did last year.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I guess I had the alarm bells on City when they conceded those 3 goals against Newcastle. I think that was sort of forgotten in a lot of narratives because of Haaland's goals. So while I accept and I personally think they will probably still win the league, I think people who have written off a lot of Arsenal's chances, I wouldn't necessarily rule Arsenal out to still be in the run in February, March. And the main reason is if this was a normal season, do Arsenal have the squad to have a Premier League title challenge, I think ultimately they would probably fall short. But the fact is, you can get to a World Cup after 16 games, you can get to a January transfer window after 17, 18 games. You could probably bring in a reinforcement that could be the difference. And I would touch on, I didn't want to talk about Arsenal on the podcast, but very briefly, that you need a bit of luck sometimes, right? So Arsenal played Tottenham at home at the start in the first spell of the season, got that win. And then if they had Liverpool away from home in Anfield, given that performance they put up against City, I just don't really see Arsenal getting a win at Anfield, even with Liverpool's form. But the fact they got them at home and they did a lot wrong in that game and still managed to win. They've actually gone to Leeds when everything was wrong against them, the Europa League, traveling away, getting back on a Friday, getting the bus up to Leeds on a Saturday. And I have to say, I was so impressed with Leeds, and we'll get into them in another show. But they were, because I hadn't really been impressed in the last 4 or 5 games, but Arsenal still won the game. And I definitely think they've got a 4-point head start on a Manchester City team. I don't see them falling away as some people would potentially see it. So the things you touched on with City's defence, absolutely. And look, as I said, 33 goals they've scored this season in the Premier League. City, it's been amazing. But I guess Haaland's goal rates cannot be as sustainable as they are in this short period of time. But who knows?
Yeah, and also, look, we aren't going to talk about Arsenal too much. As I said, anything can happen this year because of the transfer window and the earliness of it in the league. You got to remember, Arsenal signed Jesus and Zinchenko in the summer with no Champions League football. Arsenal's still in a very attractive place to play, obviously with the fact that it's in London. And it's not like Jesus and Zinchenko are on huge wages. Arsenal have learned from the hard way with Ozil and Aubameyang that they aren't going to break their wage structure as much as they have done in the past. Now, that will be tested with Saliba, Martinelli, Saka, the contracts of these players coming up. So I think if Arsenal got to January, now there is talks, paper talk about a Locatelli. Arsenal has to be one of the most exciting football projects in Europe at this moment. Like you look at the French league now. I watched a bit of PSG Marseille. PSG just, they look an absolute embarrassment with Mbappe at the moment. They're obviously, look, if you get asked to join PSG, I don't think you'll say no, but it does seem to be a big mess. You look at a lot of the Italian clubs, maybe a Napoli that are coming through, they look frightening at the moment in the Champions League. Bayern Munich have always been strong, but Arsenal have to be up there with one of those teams that people are taking note of now. And if you got asked to join Mikel Arteta, it's Arsenal at the moment, and he gives you a plan of action. There aren't too many clubs, maybe, by the top ones that aren't players wouldn't join. So it's a long way. I don't think Arsenal will win the league. I think it's all in City's hands, but there is a lot to be said for them at the moment. But as I said, look, Liverpool will come good again. But I must say, but before I finish on Liverpool, I like the way they went back to basics. And Klopp's been very critical of teams that have come to Anfield and sat in. And he had a go at Conte last year. He's had a go at Eddie Howe, and he's always. I remember when Liverpool, the year they won the league, went to Old Trafford against Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, drew late on with a Lallana goal. He came into that the post-match interview with Sky, and he was saying, how can Man United with all these players play at home and play like that? Play not to lose. And United had James and Dan James and Marcus Rashford up front, and it was just try and catch Liverpool on the break. Liverpool did a bit of that. They sat in they earned the right to win, and the first 45 minutes was a pretty cagey game. Liverpool still had chances, but the second half they came alive. And it's an awful shame for Liverpool and Portugal that Jota's now out till the World after the World Cup. Diaz similar. So Liverpool's squad is going to be tested, but that's that's the nature of the game. And I think we will see a lot of players miss the World Cup through injury. I think we've seen an awful lot already. It's just a crazy time of the year to be having a World Cup.
You think like a player like Van Dijk, World Cup coming up, he missed the Euros, he's got to be minding himself, which I personally think had to have been in the back of his mind. But on Sunday, it felt like he was probably one of the best performances I've seen from him, and he's been the best centre half in the world the last few years, maybe outside the start of this season. And look, very briefly, Arsenal play similar, or trying to play similar to Man City, but I do have a lot of similarities with them and the Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool when they first came on the scene, and everyone's saying, well, if they get an injury to Salah, Mane, Firmino, they'll fall away. The fact is they didn't. So if Arsenal do stay injury free, particularly with that front four and Partey, I definitely think they can stay with City for foreseeable. So yeah,